Hello and welcome to the Hospitality Strategy Lab. My name is Jason Littrell. I'm here with Tom Selementi, the CEO of Spread Bagelry, and he manages 17 locations across 14 states, 250 employees. And Tom, thank you so much for coming on the show. Good morning. Well, welcome.
Hey, good morning, Jason. My pleasure to be here. I appreciate you inviting me. Been a little bit.
Of course, yeah. Just a little background here. You were my boss when we worked together at the airport in Newark Terminal C. I think we opened up 13 restaurants in about 6 weeks, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, overall, I did like 49 locations and 49 days there. Boss is subjective over there. There were many layers of leadership throughout that building. And I felt like wasn't a boss. I felt like I was making sure it happened because my hands weren't on it, it wasn't happening.
There was very much an entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So speaking of that, what's your vision for Spread Bagelry?
Yeah, so Spread Bagelry is a bagel concept that's based out of Philly, but it's Montreal style bagels, right? And what I think this could be is essentially the Jersey Mike's of breakfast, right? Not even bagels, but breakfast. No one has really owned that space in a quick serve. Bagel has been hard to scale because a lot of folks, they try to cut corners on quality in order to scale. And we're not going to do that. We're going to be a commissary-led business at Spread where we're anchored by producing our raw product for all of our restaurants in one place. But in the restaurants, we're not going to cut any corners in the process of the bagel. And a bagel process is very clear, where you have to boil them and then bake them off.
And it
What
has to happen really
differentiates
fast. You can't do that offsite. You have to do that.
No, you can't do. Well, look, some are doing that, right? Some will par bake and send them off. And par bake is a great product, right? Panera did it for years, and it's to the consumer, you could tell the difference, but it's not creating a massive quality deficit. It's just it takes away the authenticity of it, right? And a bagel, from Northeast, I'm from North Jersey, bagel, you take it like a knife to it like this, and it should make a chipping sound. It shouldn't be like a roll where you kind of cut into it, right? And it's got that crusty exterior, and inside is still nice and dense. And when you par bake, you remove that. If you're just going a convection oven or a steam oven, a combi oven or something like that, which some of our competitors do, you're not going to have that same density. And that's why bagel hasn't scaled as gracefully as some other things have. And I want to change that because I think we can.
So I noticed something that you put on LinkedIn about winning the morning. What is the message there, and how do you inspire 250 employees to embrace that concept?
Yeah, look, win the morning's not my concept, right? You go and you Google and win the morning's everywhere, right? Win the morning, win the day. People have written books about it. I think, Abe Lincoln or Thomas Jefferson or somebody, very famous said something along those lines as well. When it comes to restaurants, I've been running breakfast brands for a little while now. A Bluestone anchored in coffee. Le Pain Quotidien was anchored in bakery, and now Spread is a bagel anchor. And the first thing about Win the Morning is you got to be open for breakfast, for when everybody is having breakfast. And when I first got there, all the locations were opening at 7 a.m. and that might be convenient in some ways, right? Like you're looking at a P&L and you're like, we don't really get all that busy until 7:30. It's open at 7. Right? Or you're analyzing your data and you're in a back office somewhere, but the reality is, people like me, first off, I eat breakfast before 7 a.m. I'm up at 5 every day. Breakfast is around 6:30, whether that's a smoothie or a bagel or, a yogurt parfait or something like that. I need an option while I'm up and out on the go. You got healthcare workers that are up and out and probably starting work before 7 a.m. Teachers are at school before 7 a.m. They need their breakfast. And then conversely, students as well, right? So so many people, contractors, people are out and about. It's busy at that hour. You got to be open for them, So whereas it might be convenient and you might run a little bit better labor if you're managing the middle of the P&L to say, let's not open quite that early. You're not truly a breakfast place unless you're capturing breakfast for everybody, not just a select few.
And you're open through lunch and brunch, like around 2:30, 3 o'clock,
Yeah,
right?
2:30 is when we're open till now, and we're gonna look at operating hours as we go. I am a more is more type of person. I don't typically pull back hours. I look at the operation and say, okay, we can try and do more here. If you're prepared for it, you got the people in the right places. You should be able to win the morning, and you should be able to carry that into the afternoon. It sets up the day. I grew up in full service, and in full service, everybody comes in at the same time because you have to have your pre-shift meeting, and everybody has to be in there. So this concept of like staggering in times and everything is a very QSR mentality where you're managing every dollar of labor. I definitely take like a full service approach to running QSRs where like I want the team on the field ready. I want like everybody like a shortstop before the pitch, like pounding their glove, ready when people walk in the door, and that will set up your day.
So you have a lot of influence over what your team does and what happens in the stores. How do you convert that? How do you influence the customer in their morning routine? Because that's a sacred thing for most people. Is like their morning routine is what they do every day, getting their kids ready for school, getting ready for work, getting primed for the day. How do you influence that routine in the morning to include spread?
Yeah, look, you've got to be consistent and fast. In the morning, all anybody cares about is consistency and speed, right? Like, yeah, it's got to taste good, but that should be a barrier to entry. You can't even play in the game if your food isn't good, right? So like you're going to focus on quality, fantastic. We focus on quality too. Quality is there. Let's say you've already solved that problem. Otherwise, your restaurant isn't viable, right? Spread, what we're going to focus on now is can we get it in your hands as quickly as possible so that you can now depend on us to create that habit, right? Your morning is about your habit, right? And it's got to be great cup of coffee in your hand and a bagel sandwich in your hand in 2 minutes, if it can be 2 minutes, right? So at
2 minutes
Spread, we can.
is that the goal?
Yeah, that's a goal. So like, look, the goal is as fast as you can get it out, right? And like, yeah, we're gonna put like signs on in the back of the house, like this has to be out in 5 minutes, otherwise, a manager steps in. And yes, those things exist, but that's internal. Externally to the guest, if you don't see anybody in the restaurant, you want that food in 2 minutes, right? Like why can't it be in my hand already? And we're talking about a bagel with cream cheese, a bagel with a spread. Why can't that be in my hand in 45 seconds? So that is certainly the mentality we are talking about at Spread. If it can be done, like let's get it in their hands. And then folks will start to trust us as a place that you can go to in the morning. So some of the things we're doing there, separating cold and hot, like inside baseball, there's a lot of things going on so that we can achieve those goals. From the guest perspective, if nobody's in the building or it's not perceived as super busy, like on the weekend, it should just be in their hands as soon as you order.
Okay. All right. So I live in New York. I eat bagels a lot more than the average person. And when I walk into a place, I'm thinking of specifically in my mind, Essa Bagel.
Yeah, that's
or pretty much any other ones, any of the other family-owned bagel shops. Like there's like infinite complexity in the ability to order and the customizations. Do you guys have that, or like is that something that you actively try to manage, or what? Because there's literally millions of variables there.
Yeah, look, it's a great point, right? Like ESSA is a institution. I go there as well, and yeah, you can have your whatever you like there, the customizations, as you said, but the majority of people are going there for something. Right? Like
they already know when they walk in.
Yeah, 100%. Bagel with schmear, or it's a breakfast sandwich of some sort, right? And what we are doing on our side is trying to limit the complexity for the people that are executing it, not for the guest. So the guest side, yes, there's it should appear like there's unlimited amount of customizations that you could do, but execution wise, there's very little to memorize. So when I first came in and looked at Spread, one of the things I saw was there's like 17 like of our signature sandwiches on the menu, right? That's a lot for a cook to memorize, right? To do it right every time. But if you just have on there, bacon, egg, and cheese, pork roll, egg, and cheese, brisket, egg, and cheese, pastrami, egg, and cheese. Now, instead of customizing every sandwich with egg and cheese, those are already preset, and then build your own as long as it's being like rung in the same way every time, where it's like, okay, egg choice, okay, cheese choice, now meat choice, and then any spreads or toppings choice. That removes the complexity from the cook side, so they're just reading, and on the guest side, it looks like I can make any sandwich I want in the world. So that's part of, again, some of the inside stuff we're doing at Spread.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to think of the cognitive load for the guest. And then there's also, and then on the opposite flip side of that is Apollo, which is like, these are the 10 things that we have. And this is what we have. You're welcome. We focus on this one thing.
Apollo's fantastic, right? And they execute really well, and they steer you to what they want. We're going to be a brand that is national. National and New York are two different things, right? So like Bagel is 100% New York, but in New York, you can get away with things that you can't get away with in any other place in the US for sure. And everywhere, but certain parts of the world as well. Right. You go to, Florida, Georgia, Texas, some of the cities in there, and you start telling people that, these are the only 8 sandwiches you can get and no customizations. They say, okay, I'll just keep driving. No problem.
Yeah.
In New York, it's more of, oh, wow, there's a cool factor here. These guys really believe in what they're doing, and they're doing it, and they're telling you to order it this way. You can do that in New York. You can do that in certain foodie places, maybe LA, but you can't get away with that in the rest of the world. It's just not going to happen. And look, the suburbs is going to be part of our growth story and our strategy. We perform really well in suburban markets now, and that's a very New York / central business district, high density, high income type of mentality that you're discussing, that Apollo is able to do. Apollo wouldn't be able to scale.
Well, having had bagels all over the country, I mean, there's like lots of bagel deserts out there.
Yeah, for sure.
They call them bagels, but
I mean, you're telling me. We're opening in Atlanta. Atlanta is going to be the next city we go to. Buckhead is the location for Spread Atlanta, our first location. We have LOIs on 3 other spaces, and we're going to, take a really big swing at Atlanta. And Atlanta thinks they have bagels right now, and there's a few places that serve them, but they don't. And what we're going to show them is what a true, Northeast style, it's a Montreal style bagel, because we would fire them, but it's a high quality bagel product that is not really matched by anything that's at scale. Pop-up is trying to scale right now. I'd argue it's not truly a bagel concept, more of a novelty, right? Where, they want you to dip it and rip it, or rip it and dip it, whatever they say. And they hand you little cups, and you dip your cream cheese into it. You can't order a schmear there. You can't order one bagel there. You can't order a breakfast sandwich. It's not a bagel shop, it's more of a novelty.
Huh. Okay. So let's see here. What was I going to ask you next? I was curious about this. This seemed really ambitious to me, but when you first opened at 6:00 in the morning versus 7:00 in the morning, you were offering $1 bagel and spread at the same time.
Yeah.
Like that must have hurt. But what was the upside for that?
Yeah, we want to create habit, right? And like it's if you win a guest, that's a Monday to Friday guest that's now going to come at 6 in the morning. They're coming every day, right? So the thing about breakfast is you can have the same thing every day for breakfast. Some people do that. Others have a rotation of 2 or 3 things. For dinner, you have a different thing, every day of the week. If not, all the way into up the month, you can have a different item. But for breakfast, you want that habit. You want to do the same thing every day. And that man or woman going to work, we want you stopping in with us, having a bagel with cream cheese. And if it means to hook you, we're going to offer you $1 bagel for the first time. Yeah, that was not painful in my eyes. Maybe it's a blip on a P&L for 1 month. We're okay. We're playing the long game.
Okay. So I lost my camera, but we're still here.
Yeah.
Well, we can all see you.
I remember what you look like.
Thank you. Yeah, we can't see me anymore. Which is probably for the best. But okay. So I heard this quote today that anxiety is the price of ambition. What is keeping you up at night? What's the motivating factor for getting up every day?
No, look, I generally sleep pretty well, and that's like, not as an answer to the question. I go to bed at night because I have certain dialed in success routines that help me, you know, track progress, for me personally and for our business. And, I always feel good about the direction. And when there's, issues that are, coming up in the business and we have maybe a challenging day or a challenging week and we're just coming off of it, my thing is I want to get all that out, right? I have a leadership team and, if it's in my head, I prep, let them know that like, this is the way I'm going to work, first of all, right? Sometimes you're going to get me throwing up on you a lot, right? Of all the things that I'm worried about. But once they're off of my chest, it's shared responsibility, right? And now everybody understands, okay, this is what's important to Tom as CEO of Spread. These are the things we're going to focus on for the week or the month or maybe longer if there's a root cause there that's something that we need to solve for the business. And now I have, rather than it being in my head and I'm worried about it, 4, 5, 7 people working on the problem and we're working through it together. So, also like the way I like to run my leadership team meeting is not, everybody kind of going around and giving an update on their vertical, right? What we do is, we kind of share what we say our agenda items, and then we go through the entire workflow, the entire process together of, how are we going to start this? What's the real issue? We kind of racy it out, like who's responsible, who's accountable, who do we need to consult, who needs to be informed about this, and we work through things as a team. And I'm in it with them. I'm not, the CEO who's just pointing and shooting.
I remember Rick Blatstein saying it at a meeting in Barbados one time. He's like, once I'm involved, I'm involved.
Yeah, no, and Rick was good at that, like Rick would have, one-to-ones with me from time to time. And he really wanted to know the things that were, affecting the people that worked in his business. I think sometimes folks were afraid to tell him certain things, which is why maybe OTG ran the way it did at times. But yeah, like I felt like Rick was effective in that way. If he's in it, he's in it. And I feel similarly, like I want to be in it with you. I don't want to say that's your problem. Let me know how you're going to solve it.
When you're having these meetings, how do you keep track of the individual issues, the timelines, the deadlines, the accountability? How do you keep track of that?
Yeah, look, that's always hard. We're always coming up with the way that we want to track our progress to make sure that things are being integrated properly, right? So we, instead of just putting together processes, we kind of form like a strategy, right? And then we work that out, and then somebody sole ownership of it, right? So even though we're working through it together, there is sole ownership so that someone owns it from start to finish. And then we're making sure that we're following up on it. I have a chief of staff. He's just starting. And that is really that person's sole focus, is to ensure that everybody's not just running in circles and putting out fires and, working in the business, that we stay as a leadership team working on the business and allow the folks that are in the business to truly, own their role and run our restaurants for us effectively. Our job as leaders is to remove obstacles, to make life easier, to solve root cause issues and make you more effective at your job. Right? The way I look at it is the average person should be able to be highly successful at Spread. If it's too complex for that, then we have no chance at scaling this business. We'll stay 16, 17 location chain that is successful in its own right. But if you really want to, grow the thing, you've got to be a true support system for the team. They don't report into us. We report into them.
Yeah. I got a million more questions for you. So you tell me how much time you got, but
I'm settled in.
Thank you. So you've got 17 restaurants. You're looking at 17 reports on a day-to-day basis. What are the numbers that you care about the most?
Yeah. So really it's what things are we looking at daily at Spread? What are we looking at weekly? What things do we look at monthly? And which things do we look at quarterly? Like, try not to get bogged down in the detail, but more in the process, right? So all of those things are outcomes, right? Sales is an outcome, labor is an outcome, COGS an outcome, right? And then your P&L at the end of the month is an outcome of processes that you either put into place or you haven't put into place yet, or the output of things that you haven't solved for versus what you've done a great job solving for. And what I mean by that is success in restaurants can and should be designed, right? You got a great general manager in place who's, forecasting out their business properly, scheduling according to their forecast in sales, putting the right team on place, is constantly looking to get the best talent into the business. Odds are sales and labor are sorted out, right? Now you're running your cost of goods, and that, and if your recipes are input properly and you have your theoretical cost identified, and then you're getting those actual numbers, and then you're identifying where your issues are on COGS. Oh, we're baking off too many bagels on this day, or we're cooking off too much bacon here, and you're solving those problems. Now COGS is solved, right? And then eventually your P&L is solved, and that becomes this very virtuous cycle where the right people are solving the right problems, and then the financials come into play. So really what I'm tracking daily is, our sales up or down versus prior year? That's simple, right? On a day-to-day basis. Now, in that location, same store sale, up or down versus prior. If it's down, odds are there's a systemic issue in that restaurant that we haven't solved.
How do you find your team members, and how do you invest in them? How do you get them up to speed?
Yeah. So look, we're finding people through the same measures that everybody is. If it's just like around how are we recruiting, right? But what we've done also at Spread is we decided right when I came on that we're going to have general managers in every location. So, that's a bit of a low hanging fruit, right? We didn't
versus regional leadership.
Yeah. Regional leadership, or, supervisor reporting in to an area manager. Right. And what I found in that, when you have that, area manager role, is they're always in the wrong place at the wrong time, or in between restaurants, right? You call them, they got 3 locations that they're in charge of. Are you at this location? No, I'm actually on my way to go to the other place, right? And they end up
There's a reasonable spread. Like these aren't concentrations in larger metros. These are like they're pretty far.
Yeah, I mean, for us, there's 4 in downtown Philly, right? And then, you can get to them within 10, 15 minutes of one another, because, Philly's not like so spread out. But yeah, and then, Jersey, and then we have some in the Southeast as well, right? So in this particular instance, we decided that, we're going to put general managers in every location. And general manager in every location is an investment that you have to take. It's going to add, cost to the individual business at first, right? But then eventually that cost starts paying for itself, because you have a leader that's accountable for the results in that restaurant every single day. So at Spread, we took a hit in July and August as we hired and identified people in the restaurant that were able to do this and got them up to speed. And then slowly we've been giving them the tools in order to run their business and be successful. What we found is the restaurants where the general manager is highly engaged, identifying the right talent, has gotten up to speed more quickly, those locations are seeing 20, 25, 30% same store sales growth over prior year. The base was no leadership. And then those area managers, what we've done is we've given them some tools and turned them into district managers. And they now we have a span of control that's very attainable. And the GMs have a very clear person that they report into. District managers have enough direct reports where they can go from one restaurant per day. So like what I like to do is have that district area leader spend a whole day in one location, not bounce around.
How about your frontline staff?
Yeah, frontline staff, I'd say that we have a very good employee proposition, right? Which is, it's daytime business, right? You don't have to work evenings. And, there's a few places where you can make that happen. right? But here in particular, if you're a morning person, you have things that go on in the afternoon. You can truly be out by 2:30, not like daytime, meaning like 4 or 5 p.m. So and I
You
think
can pick
that's
up
a
your kids after school after your shift.
yeah, totally. You could be there at pickup, and we have a great team, great staff because of this. And when we are looking actively, we're finding people. And is it a great place to work? Is the thing you have to constantly be asking yourself. Is this a great place to work? Or is it really hard place to work? Is it a place where people are not happy to be at? Look, when growing up in North Jersey, the bagel shop was where all the cool kids worked. We all loved to work. Everyone worked at the bagel shop. We had a good time. It's fun. I learned how to bake when I was 17 years old. I was in my hands in the oven, turning the slats, and there was like not just like that coolness factor, but you were really learning something, and you had a lot of pride because it was great. Everybody loved bagels.
I remember taking a bagel tour in New York City, and then somebody telling me that like how there are these like specialists who just form bagels.
Yeah.
Who just form bagels, and it's like it could be a lifetime pursuit to master this thing. How do you train somebody how to do that?
Well, look, we're
among
not
other
forming.
things. Like, are your frontline staff, are they specialized? Do some of them only take orders? Do some of them only form bagels? Do some of them only make sandwiches? Like, how does that work?
So we form in the commissary, and we form by machine, right? So we're not formed by hand like North Jersey, right? Certainly a skill, and requires a different type of equipment that we have. The bagel maker is fantastic, and you have to do that too. In-house, the baker is the most specialized role. It's very hard, right? So you're talking about a wood-fired oven that you have to maintain temperature. It's also gas assisted, but it is, has wood in there. And so the key with a wood-fired oven is the whole thing has to be the same temperature, right? And you got the source is wood is right there, and it's hard, right? So you have to let it sit there for a while. It takes 35, 40 minutes for it to get that. The bottom has to be hot enough so that you get a char on the bottom. Otherwise, just the top will bake off. And yeah, we pay our bakers well because of this. You have to get there at 3:30 in the morning.
Do they matriculate to that position, or are they hired for that position?
No, we hire bakers, but we also have like any supervisory role has to know how to bake as well. So you have a baker. So there's a backup, right? So there's baker, there's a supervisor, there's a general manager. Usually 2 to 3 people in the restaurant know how to bake. So in some cases, I have more than that. But baristas are baristas. They know how to do that role, and
I mean, it's a lot of specialized. I mean, like it's a lot of specialized skills.
yeah,
Bakers, coffee makers, baristas, and then people have to be nice.
100%. Look, anything you're doing from scratch is going to require a skill set. So we do everything from scratch, right? So we're making every sandwich from scratch. It's raw egg that we're cracking ourselves and cooking on the grill. So the cooks are specialized. As much cross functionality as you can have in a QSR is going to help you, right? So we encourage and give our teams the tools at Spread to become cross-functional. If you want to become a leader, a supervisor, a general manager, you have to know all the positions. So we're instituting some of these things so that like we can start to kind of dictate our own success as we grow.
Do you have like a 100-day plan, or like just like a specific thing that everybody goes through so that everybody can explain what the business does, who it serves, how it does it, that kind of stuff?
Where we have a lot of opportunity is in that area. We're like really defining what the experience is when you come into a Spread, right? So we haven't really invested in the L&D side yet. There is a lot of tribal knowledge, and we're putting together what we're doing. We're just taking a little bit different approach where we're defining the processes first, right? Realizing all of those processes. So, you'd think a 17 location chain would have all these things already put together. They didn't. It's why there's a new CEO. It's why I got this role, right? It's because these are the kind of things that I'm good at, right? Is taking a business that's already moving down on the tracks and like saying, okay, let's slow it down so that we can go fast in the future.
This is what I remember about working with you. Is you were a very patient and kind leader for me, and I needed it because I was lost. I was in way over my head, and I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing here, guys. And you took me aside and you just walked me through it, and you're like, here's like take a step back.
Yeah.
Look at the bigger thing. This is what we really need. This is what's really important. When I was like mired in the details and infinite complexity. So thanks for that.
No, thank you for recognizing that. I appreciate it. Look, it's always about the amount of knowledge that you can transfer out, right? Like if I can help folks be successful in their role, then I'm doing my job as a CEO, as a senior executive.
All right. I got one more question before I let you go. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time.
My pleasure.
My camera cut out one more time. Sorry. It's like overheating for some reason in the first time in the history of like 200 podcasts or so. This is the first time this has happened.
No sweat.
So I want to ask you, the last question is like, what are your favorite problems right now? What's most exciting for you to solve right now?
Well, look, in restaurants, they're all fun problems, and unless they're compliance related, right? Those are not the most fun problems to solve, but they're in there. Look, what we're doing right now is starting to define how we can reduce complexity and grow sales. That's a really fun project that we're doing right now. It may not sound fun, but it is, because there's so many layers to it.
My love language right here, by the way, like the boring but essential stuff is like, these are the problems that I love solving.
So we love to do root cause stuff, right? Like if we're getting certain reviews that they'll tell us something, we don't want to just solve that problem, right? We just want to keep asking why. Why is that happening? Why is that happening? And maybe the root cause is we're not hiring the right people, or we're hiring that came out wrong, or we're hiring folks, but we're not giving them the tools that they need to be successful. They're untrained when they're out there on the playing field. One thing that we're coming to over and over again is, mistakes once the sandwich is in folks' hands, right? And we're bringing that down, trying to solve that, instead of saying, well, that person made it wrong. How do we reduce complexity so that there is less of it going forward, right? And this project is going to change, the menu so that it's easier to execute, but on the guest side, it's going to look like there's actually more options. So it's very cool and fun. So it's but it's hard to define, because how can it be more options when you're reducing complexity? It's by how you kind of code things on the POS, right? How you place things in your mise en place, all of these things, right? Like we have 17 locations and everybody's mise is set up because what they think is best for them, because these people order this more or this more. Like that's a problem we have to solve. We have to give them now a schematic for their mise en place based on the product mixes that we're seeing, right? And all of those problems have never been solved at Spread, and we're kind of doing that stuff now. And we really think once we have that, we're going to be able to grow at a much faster speed than we are now.
Are you typically seeing like that? Sorry, I got one more question. Are you typically seeing like a pretty consistent pattern of what people actually like and order in each store? Like, is there homogeny there?
Look, people come to bagel shops, and yes, it's a lot of similar stuff. It is blank egg and cheese, and mostly bacon, right? So even when you have those chicken clubs on there, or you have this cool like Reuben sandwich, they're there, but they're not being ordered by the masses. Everybody equates bagels with breakfast. And even if they're coming at noon, 1 p.m., they still want breakfast sandwich. So we're kind of listening to that and not trying to, force a, square peg into a round hole here, where it's like, oh, if we're open at till 2:30, why don't we have more lunch items? No, nobody cares, right? They want their bacon, egg, and cheese as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
I eat bacon, egg, and cheese for lunch. Why the hell not?
How are you collecting feedback, and how do you get people to respond to when you ask them how their experience was?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and I found that at quick serve you need to be getting feedback in the moment, right? So I use the company called Tattle at Bluestone, and we looked at them. Right now, I'm using a company called Ovation, and what it's giving us is around 50 to 75 feedbacks a day. And it's been really reassuring because number one, what we found is, oh, we're not as bad as we think, right? Because if you just Yelp and Google, you're going to take that one or two negative feedbacks and you might go down a rabbit hole of trying to solve something that isn't really a problem. It just might be a one-time event there. And what getting that much feedback tells you is, oh, these are actual issues and these things maybe are not issues, and we're really good at these things, and it's helped us recognize people more often, which is fantastic, right? Like you got to be if you want to be a place that people like to come to, you got to recognize when they're doing things right. And it's helped us do that more than anything. The amount of recognition we're getting through just great guest experiences. I can't believe how fast that was, getting that kind of stuff. It reinforces the things that we're working on. But our issues are still our issues. When we're really busy, we have to solve that a little bit better, the flow of the guest experience. And that is 100% what we're working on. We want to be the best when we're the busiest.
Amazing.
The best restaurants are the best when they're the busiest.
Yeah. No, that's great. All right. Thank you so much for jumping on the Hospitality Strategy Lab. This has been Tom Selementi, the CEO of Spread Bagelry, 17 locations, 4 states, 250 plus employees. Tom, thank you so much for being so generous with your thoughts on this.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. Good to see you again. And
Good to see you.
Anytime.